a slumber that's dark and alone. Inspiring new breath rising in through my nose. Into awareness I wake. A new life on loan greets the day. Turn to your source of all light. Smile and say thank you for each breath you entice. Freed from exhaustion and shame, knowing we are sparks of the name. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Shenatatabi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Shenatatabi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Tehorahi. Ata v'rata, ata yitzalta, ata nefakta bi. Ata mishamira, mishamra b'kirbi ve'ata tidlit la mimeni. B'chayei olam. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Shenatatabi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Tehorahi. Sing with life breath, sing it with soul. My heart sings, I long to know, to feel her breathe me. She must be close, since it's true. Have an expiration date. Let me live infinitely through the day. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Shenatatabi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama Tehorahi. A new life on loan greets the day. Good morning, my friends. Feeling renewed, slept, a new life beginning. The traditional prayer for this is on page 194. Moving from the body to the heart, from the blessings of our physicality to the emotions that keep us in motion. Whistling, birds and leaves, making music, it's a breeze, whispering joys and pains of all the songs that heartstrings can play, from breath to word, words birthing worlds, renewing life, now it's our turn. Baruch She'amar, Baruch She'amar v'haya olam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Kosei v'reshit, Baruch Shemo, Baruch She'amar v'haya deep, rolling in time, they sound out the beat, wondering, why am I here? What can I say? Why so much fear? From breath to word, words birthing worlds, renewing life, now it's our turn. Baruch Shema V'Hayaolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Kosei Bereshit, Baruch Shemo. Waking the love I have to give, voicing melodies, longing to live. Now that's a blessing when voices sing, singing all is one, I will be done. From heart and mind, from lips and tongue, hand in hand, now it's our turn. Baruch Shema V'Hayaolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Kosei Bereshit, Baruch Shemo. Baruch Shema V'Hayaolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Kosei Bereshit. Page 262.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Lord, I Shema, tell hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Lord, I Shema, tell hallelujah, hallelujah.
Page 278, we rise. Look around, who's here? Greet each other with your eyes since your mouths are covered. Greet each other on Zoom. Hello, friends. You can send private chats. I won't even know. Everybody wave to the people on Zoom. The camera's back there. We
Rise and bow our heads, calling out your name. Blessed Holy One, we see you in each face.
together. Blessed Holy One, your presence in this place, hidden in plain sight. You fill our lives with grace. Together. Baruch Adonai, Ham You may be seated. In preparation for the Shema on page 304, I'm taking in the sunshine right now. It's like right on my face. It's so nice. Yotzer or, uvore choshech, oseh shalom, uvore takol. The light and the shadow, the dark and the day and the night coming together, somehow finding harmony, shalom. May we be inspired by the beauty of this place and this time of year. And may we be inspired in particular to love with the abundance that we are loved. And because we're getting ready to say the Shema, I realized I forgot to put my talit on. So we'll chant on page 302. Havienu leshalom be'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemihut le'atzenu ki el poel Yeshuot atap v'keravtan l'shimcha gadol Selah, באמת להודות לך, ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו Israel. Beneath the line, when we feel as distant from others as the four corners of the earth are from each other, when our alienation and obsession with self make us belligerent, gather us together, bring us to peace, help us to become aware of your wholeness, that we may be whole. Page 304. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta, and it's upon you to love. B'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha, with your whole heart, with all you are, with your whole person, and with all your strength, with all your me'od, with all of your uniqueness. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom, and these are the words that I command you this day. Al levavecha. Memorize them. Take them to heart. V'shinantam levanecha, and repeat them for yourselves and for your children. V'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha, and speak of them there when you're sitting in your house, when you're at home, when you're quarantined. Uvlechtecha v'derech, and when you're out and about. Uvshochbecha, when you lie down. Uvkumecha, and when you rise each morning. Ukshartam leot al yadecha, and make them a binding for a sign upon your hand, a reminder on your fingers or your hands. Vehayu letotafot beinenecha, and let they be a lens through which you can see the world and place between your eyes, to see the possibilities of transformation that loving with all we are can achieve. Uchtavtam, and write them. Al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha, on the doorposts of your houses and upon your gates, whenever you come and whenever you go. And may they be a sign to show us the way to freedom. Micha Mocha, page 317.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai.
Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef. Shira chadasha, a new song, shibchu geulim, will bring praises, the Shimcha al Sfat Hayam, on the edges of your lips, on the edges of the sea. Yachad kulam hodu v'him lichu v'amru. Together, all of us can practice gratitude, hodu v'him lichu, and we will elevate and crown you to be our sovereign, to place you, your collective good, at the center. Adonai imloch leolam vaed. Tzur Yisrael. Please rise. Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael. Uvdechinu mecha Yehuda be'Yisrael. Golenu Adonai tzevot shemo. Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai. God Israel. Page 324. Page 388. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Yaakov, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imot, U'mibli Geula livnei Lehem, Leman Shemo Yahweh. May my mouth be opened and my prayers arise to entreat the sovereign, full of mercy and compassion, who forgives and pardons all transgression. Zochrenu. Zochrenu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chodrenu v'sefer ha'chaim, le'ma'amrecha Elohim chaim.
Melech Hazer, u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah.
Amen. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, Rav lehoshia, morid hatav. Michamochav harachamim, zocher yitzurav lechaim berachamim, v'ne'eman ata lehachayot kol chai. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh kol chai. Page 404.
Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot. Holy, holy, holy world is filled with love and His glory. Holy, 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 holy Adonai, Adonai. Oh, Meloch Haaretz, Meloch Haaretz,
can offer a personal, individual confessional, page 424, and then be seated. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Make peace, peacemakers. Make peace. Breakers, scattered pieces come together made whole. Oh, now say shalom, shalom aleichem, shalom, I'll call Yisrael. Oh, now say shalom, shalom aleichem, shalom. Call your Shlei Tevel. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Oh, now say shalom, shalom aleichem. Call Yisrael. Bo'una say shalom, shalom aleichem, shalom. I'll call your Shlei Tevel. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Where peace instead of bombs can take flight. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Let us say Ve'imiru. Amen. Let us come together and say Amen. Amen. I'd like to invite Joanne to lead us in our communal confessional, and Tara Salzman's coming up because Maureen is out, not able to join us to help Joanne. On page 424, please rise.
Very
Remain standing, page 435. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For our failures of truth, we ask forgiveness. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For pretending to emotions we do not feel. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For using the sins of others to excuse our own. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For denying our responsibility for our own misfortunes. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For refusing to admit our share in the troubles of others. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For condemning in our children the faults we tolerate in ourselves. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For condemning in our parents the faults we tolerate in ourselves. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For passing judgment without knowledge of the facts. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For remembering the price of things but forgetting their value. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For teaching our children everything but the meaning of life. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For loving our egos better than the truth. We sin against God when we sin against ourselves. For our failures of love we ask forgiveness. For using people as stepping stones to advancement. For confusing love and lust. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For withholding love to control those we claim to love. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For hiding from others behind an armor of mistrust. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For treating with arrogance people weaker than ourselves. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For condescending towards those whom we regard as inferiors. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For shunting aside those whose age is an embarrassment to us. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For giving ourselves the fleeting pleasure of inflicting lasting hurts. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. For cynicism will eat away at our faith in the possibility of love. Eloha selithot selach lanu mechalanu kapelanu ve'al kulam Eloha selithot selach lanu mechalanu selach lanu mechalanu kapelanu. Page 454. May I have a volunteer to open the ark for us? Someone who hasn't done it ever before. Yeah? Wonderful. Yeah, come on. Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, 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 Yemanu Masi.
Page 470, responsively, Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'Rashemu.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol
Adonenu, Kadosh v'Rashemu.
Gadlu Anaiti, Uneroma, Shemo Yachdah.
Adonai Hagedula, Hagevura, V'Hatiferet, V'Hanetzah, V'Yavod, Ki Hova Shamayim U'Haaretz, Ki Hova Shamayim U'Haaretz, Lecha Adonai HaMamlecha, V'Hamid Na'aseh Lechol Erosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishachavu Lemako
The band can't stop themselves. Greetings, friends. Are we taking breaths and appreciating this? Wow. What a beautiful morning to be doing this and gathering. So we turn to the Torah reading for Yom Kippur. I'm going to invite Alan Rubin, if he's not preoccupied too much with AV stuff, to come and help me out with the Torah service. And as you know, we have, for Yom Kippur, it's customary to have 6 aliyot. So we are calling 6 groups, and that includes you guys on Zoom, to feel free to unmute and do the blessings with our siblings here in the congregation. So I'll give you the categories of the groups that we're using for each of the 6. Everyone is welcome to come or be accompanied to do an aliyah, and you can do that from your chair. You don't have to come up to the bima since we're trying to social distance as well. So the first aliyah will be for those who had a loss this past year, recent loss, those who consider themselves in mourning. The second will be for those recovering from an illness, and we'll do a prayer for healing as a part of that aliyah. The third aliyah will be for founding members and pioneer members of Beth Evergreen, the Vatikim, and also the members of the CBE Legacy Society that are ensuring the long-term future of the congregation. The fourth aliyah is for those who find themselves connected to CBE in lots of, or maybe one informal way. Well, it's mahjong or softball or the shelter or roho or broho or knitting or etc., music. The fifth aliyah will be for those who have a formal role on a committee or on the board for CBE. And the sixth aliyah will be for first-timers, newcomers, and guests. Okay, so I'll obviously reiterate that as we go. And the blessing that you'll be doing as you come up is in the prayer book on page 476. And also you can just stand. You don't have to recite the blessing. Any questions about the Torah service? So for those who are new to CBE or to the Reconstructionist community, we do have a phrase in the Torah blessing before the reading that is slightly amended. If you're more comfortable with the traditional blessing, you can do that. You can find that sort of on page 474, and we'll have a card up here with the traditional blessing. Otherwise, you can use the reconstructed phrase, Kervanu la'avodato. Okay, so our first reader is Ofer Tal. Ofer, I think, is doing it from Zoom, right?
I'm on Zoom. I'm here.
Hey, Ofer. Cool. Okay, so we call forward those who would like to recognize a recent loss, who would like to be comforted by the congregation as mourners. Vaya Zor v'Chunesabo.
Joanne, for our Torah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I do. Before we do that, Joanne Greenberg, come on up and share some words. That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Get us primed for some Torah.
As always.
If ignorance is bliss, we should be happier. One of the many paradoxes of Judaism is the one about knowing and not knowing. If I had to define what Judaism is in 2 words, it would begin with yes, which is our basic acceptance of life and of humankind, flaws and all. Even Moses, even God, who in Genesis declared our creation to be very good, and in the very next book, Exodus, regretted that he had created us. The second word of my definition would be awareness. We know what it is to be unaware. Jacob, after visions and a peak moment, says, God was here and I didn't know it. To be aware isn't necessarily to know. Kashrut is all about being aware. What is this food? Where does it come from? A tree, the water? Was it once alive? How was it killed? The Talmud is made of questions. When does a day begin and end? What is it to honor your father and mother? What exactly? What are the limits of charity? When can a vow be invalid? Moses saw the burning bush. He was aware, but he didn't know what the sight meant until God introduced a self, not as a noun, but as the present tense of the active verb to be, the isness of what is. Knowing, not knowing. The connotations that surround both the Hebrew and the Yiddish words for childlike naivete are negative. We don't romanticize the sacred fool. The great Christian mystic Hildegard of Bingen said that she wanted to be merely a feather on the breath of God. We Jews remember that the lady weighed in at a cool 150 pounds. And feathers. I have the vision of God sneezing and turning the Himalayas into the Grand Canyon. Being as little children gets no gold stars in our books. On the other hand, to know is to surrender the greatest gift we Jews have, hope. If you know what will happen even 5 minutes from now, there are no possibilities. We say, if only I had known, I never would have. But is that true? You might have screwed it up even worse. So if we don't want to hope, if we want to hope, we have to give up a certain amount of knowing. And doing so, we are introduced to another prime requirement of faith, courage. I often think about this when bolstered with a leftover piece of cold pizza and a cup of coffee. I propel myself toward yet another rendezvous with one of my many other physicians, going down I-70 at 70 miles an hour, neighbored by strangers on all sides of me, combined as we never will be again, some doing 80, and we're able to declare our intentions with only a tiny set of signaling lights. If that's not hope, trust, and courage, what is? Denver was there yesterday. I'm hoping it will be here today. If you don't you have some deep sense of relief every time you get home and see that the house is still standing? We have just come through a year that showed us how little we knew, even with all our awareness and courage. And for over a year, many of us have fallen for myths of knowing and a yearning for perfection. Let's have a revolution. Let's sweep away the useless past. Let's do a complete tikkun olam, which demands a clean field. I tried that. I found I couldn't even tikkun evergreen, or even a restless part of Beth Evergreen. We can't give up, but we need to perfect our awareness because our knowing will never be complete. Because we don't know, we have to learn things. Our son David, when he was 5, would appear with chocolate all over his mouth and some in his ear. How wise he thought I was to intuit where he had just been. Surely I could see through walls. I never let him in on my secret. Some knowledge is too valuable to be given away. As for hope, one of our sages said, "It's a beautiful thing, hope. It's the waiting that ruins it."
Okay, all right, with apologies, Ofer, we're back on to the first Leah. So I'd like to call forward those who experienced a loss recently. Vayazor v'tkenusum bo v'namar amen hakol avon nechavod laTorah yamdu. If you shout out your Hebrew name. Mordechai David. Okay, can't hear quite. Anybody on Zoom there? ואתם הדבקים עליכם חיים כולכם היום. All right, if you would, Mort, would you come up and help with the Torah? Whoops. Show. There it comes. Okay. When you do the. Can you put it up here, Alan? Sure. The blessing. Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam. Asher b'chabanu mikol amim v'nosananu es Toraso. Baruch Atah Adonai Noseinu Torah.
Amen. Okay, Ofer, you're on.
אוקיי. וידבר אדוני אל משה אחרי מות שני בני אהרון בקרבתם לפני אדוני וימותו. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, דבר אל אהרון אחיך, ואל יבוא בכל עת אל הקודש, מבית לפרוכת אל פני הכפורת, אשר על הארון, ולא ימותו, כי בענן אראה על הכפורת. בזאת יבוא הארון אל הקודש, בפר בן בקר לחטאת ואייל לעולה.
And the blessing after.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher nosan Torah emes v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Misha Berach Avotenu Abraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May the Holy One who blessed our ancestors grant blessing to each of you and each of us who find ourselves grieving. May you be comforted by the support of family and friends. May the person for whom you stand and mourn, may their legacy be a blessing to you, and may you find ways to internalize and to share the traits and the qualities of their life, the legacies that they left, to perpetuate their name, Bitzur Hatzur HaChaim, in our own, binding their lives to ours. And may all of us be enriched by their ongoing presence amidst us. And let us say, Amen. Amen. I'll have you stay up because you can be helpful too. Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, B'toch Sha'ar V'Leitzun B'Yerushalayim, may those in mourning find comfort among us and your fellow brothers and sisters in Israel and Jerusalem. V'nomar, and let us say, Amen. Amen. For the second Aliyah, we invite to rise all those who are recovering from illness, who are or seeking healing. And I guess that would be quite a few people. And maybe, Michael, would you be willing to come up and represent that group? And again, folks on Zoom, you're welcome to unmute and say the blessings. By the way, the Torah reading, I apologize for not mentioning it earlier, page 517 and 518 in the Machzor. Nate Wallowitz was going to be reading this next Aliyah, but his father is gravely ill, and so he's back in Baltimore. So we certainly send blessings of healing to his father and their family. Yamdu Michael, Yona Ra'anan, Michael Ruth, Talior Haz, Ben and Bat Margalit v'Havrav Benjamin Eliyahu. Names, Hebrew names? David. And anyone else on Zoom? Okay, for the blessing prior to the reading.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bochav lanu mekol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Amen. Ketonet bad kodesh yilbash michnasei bad yiyu al besoro ubavnet bad yachgor umitznefet bad yitznaf bigdei kodesh hem virachatz bamayim et besoro yilvashem et adat bnei Israel veikach shnei sirei ezim lechatat והעיר אחד לעולה, והקריב אהרון את פר החטאת, ואת אשר לו, וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו, ולקח את שני סירים, והעמיד אותם לפני אדוני, פתח אוהל מועד, ונתן אהרון על שני סירים גורלות, גורל אחד לאדוני, וגורל אחד לעזאזל. And I read too much. לעזאזל.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nota bechotenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Shekoach. We're going to do a blessing for healing. Feel free to put names in the chat of those for whom you're praying, or yourself. Chuck Sedun, Larry Wallowitz, Ken Matthew, Glenn Seiler, Mike Schneider, Nancy Friedman, Martin Diesenhoff, Robin Chalker, Steve Bernstein, Karen Bennett, Kim Bierbrower, Leslie Maines, Steve Posner, Shulamit Batsabina, Ken Larner, Ryan Urso, Harry Klein, Adam Brass, Marilyn Irv Silverstein, Joel Simon, Suni Simon, Renee Lordich, Lisa Holmes, Mike Glade, Elida Glade, Susan Levin, Lawrence Fox, Ron Salzman, Yehuda Benjamin, Linda Shaw, Nikki Shaw, Eileen Salzman, Edward Cohen, Adam Giordani, Maureen Spiegelman, Charlie Ellis. Other names. Those we named and those we hold in our hearts, and the so many we don't know to name, may they be granted healing. On page 478 is a Birkat HaGomel, a blessing for those who have survived a near miss, right? Survived an endangered situation. So I think probably most of us can count ourselves among that, but certainly some have had closer calls than others. So for those who have had close calls, join me in the blessing, and then the congregation will respond, and then we bless together. Page 478. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hagomel l'chayavim tovot, shegemaleni kol tov. Together? Amen. Mi shigemalcha tov, hu yigmalcha kol tov. Selah. Or he, Amen, mi shigemalech tov, hu yigmalech kol tov. Selah. Back to the continuation of the Torah reading. So we're on page 520 in the reading. Joanne Greenberg will be our reader. And we call forward with her any founding members, Vatikim, or those who are part of the Legacy CBE Legacy Society, having made pledges in their estate plans and wills to make a contribution to CBE when we pass. Yamdu. Your Hebrew name, Joanne?
Yosef Hanan
Yosef Hana
Bat Lev.
Bat Lev. Hebrew name? Okay. Blessing before.
Baruch Adonai
Hamborach. Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leilam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kerbanu la'avadato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Lakach et shnei hasirim v'hemidotam lifnei Adonai petach ohel moed v'natan Aharon al shnei hasirim go'alot go'al echad l'Adonai v'gor l'echad la'azazel v'hikriv Aharon et asayir at asher alal hagoral l'Adonai v'asahu chatat v'asayir asher alav hagoral la'azazel yamad chai asher Allah, Lifnei Adonai, l'chaper alav, l'shalach oto la'azazel hamidbarach, v'hikriv Aharon et par hakatat, asher lo v'kapa ba'ado uva'ad beito v'shachat et par hakatat asher lo. Thank you, and I'm sorry.
And the blessing following.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notam b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Yishar Koach, and thank you to our founders and the Legacy Society members. The fourth Aliyah, we have a new reader for the High Holidays. Leah Brunfen is going to come up and read. Hi, Leah. And for the Aliyah, we'd like to honor people who are involved in some of the CBE informal activities. So, Mahjong, softball, shelter program, the Chabura, you're part of a Chabura, or Broho, or Roho. And maybe we could have somebody come up and represent that group from here. Or somebody online? Me? Or,
No, Alan.
Alan, sure.
The other Alan.
Great. Okay. Okay, Leah, let's find your spot first. Okay. Starting with the left one, right? The left one. Just below that. No?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, go ahead. Baruch et Adonai HaBorach. Baruch Adonai HaBorach le'olam ha'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kevanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Velaka Meloch HaMachta Gahalei Eish Me'al HaMizbeach Melifnei Adonai Meloch Uvnav Ketoret Samim Deka Vehevi Mibeit Laparohet Venatan Et HaKatoret Al Ha'esh Lifnei Adonai Vehisa Hanan HaKatoret Et HaKaporet Asher Al Ha'edut Velo Yamut Velaka Midam Hapar Vehisa Etzbaot Al Panei HaKaporet Ked Ma Belifnei HaKaporet Yaseh Sheva Pe'amim Min Hadam Betzbaot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein HaTorah.
Amen. Beautiful job, Leah. So what's your, do you want to say what your club is, your informal?
Playing in the band.
Playing in the band. And Allison? Tikkun Olam? Biking, fishing? Hiking in the band? Nice. Chabura. Lovely. Next, so the next Aliyah, we're honoring those who are on and leader in committees and the board. Tara, come on up, you'll be reading. Yamdu. We got Michael and Mindy and Dan and Jay and Lori. Anyone else on formal committees? Yeah, and Sarah. So just say out your Hebrew name. And anybody on Zoom there? Okay. So let's do the blessing. Baruch hu et Adonai HaBorach.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirvanu la'avadato, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
ושחט את שעיר החטאת אשר לעם והביא את דמו אל מביט לפרוכת ועשה את דמו כאשר יישא לדם הפר והיזה אותו על הכפורת ולפני הכפורת וכיפר על הקודש מטומאות בני ישראל ומפשעיהם לכל חטאותם וכן יעשה לאוהל מועד השוכן איתם בתוך טומאותם וכל אדם לא יהיה באוהל מועד בבוא לכפר בקודש עד צאתו וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ובעד כל קהל ישראל.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, b'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. May the Holy One who inspired you to take leadership roles at CVE continue to bring you nourishment and joy from this call, from this service, and may you find successors easily. And let us say, Amen. For the sixth Aliyah, we honor guests or newcomers, relative new members of CBE. Welcome. Come on up if you'd like. Anyone else? Anybody on Zoom? Joining Zooming for the first time? Yamdu. And your Hebrew names?
Alana, Bryna, Bat Moshe, Miriam.
Alana, Bryna, Bat Moshe, Miriam.
Perfect. Yeah.
Shmuel Moshe Ben. What was the first one? David Ve'elat, L'Aliyah HaShishit. And I think, Dan, you're reading? So for the last Aliyah, we'll do page 530.
Yep. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barak Leolam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barak Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher karvat. It's different. V'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Shabbat Shabbaton Ilachem, Vinitam et Nafshotechem, Hu Chat Olam, Vachiper HaKohen, Asher Yimshach Oto, Vasher Yimalei et Yado, LaHaKohen, Tachat Aviv, Velavash et Bigdei Habad, Bigdei HaKodesh, Vachiper et Mikdash HaKodesh v'et Ohel Moed v'et HaMizbeach Yechaper v'al HaKohanim ועל כל עם הכחל יכפר, והייתה זאת לכם לחקת עולם, לכפר על בני ישראל מכל חטאותם אחת בשנה, ויעשה כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה.
That one's the same. I thought.
Sorry. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Thank
Do you
you.
want to say how you found Beth Evergreen? Or?
We moved to Littleton recently, and this was nearby, and we like the mountains, and so we thought we'd check it out.
All right, welcome to both of you.
Thank
welcome
you.
to both of you,
Thank
and
you.
to all new members and guests at CBE. Welcome. Thank you for enriching our community with your presence. Ari and Diane, you gonna? Yeah, bring a chair, Ari. Let's rise for the lifting and redressing of the scroll, page 546.
Say one.
Go for it.
Let him sit there.
Bezot HaTorah asher Moshe b'nei Israel ki Adonai b'yad Moshe. You may be seated. All right, we continue with the Haftarah, which Ari will be doing. So the blessings before the Haftarah are found on page 552, and then the Haftarah for Yom Kippur on page 569. Passages from Isaiah, 2nd Isaiah, looking at an evolution of these Yom Kippur rituals.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nviim tovim, v'ratzav divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah, u'Moshe avdo, u'Yisrael amo, u'v'nviei ahemet v'tzedek. Ve'amar solu solu panadarech harimu mishcho miderech ami ki cho amar ram v'nisa shochenad v'kadosh shemo maram v'kadosh eshkon ve'et daka u'shval ruach L'hachayot ruach shifalim u'l'hachayot lev nitkaim ki lo le'olam ariv ve'lo lanetzach ektzov ki ruach milfana ya'atov unshamot ani asiti, ba'avon beats o, batzavti ve'akehu, haster ve'ektzov, vayelech shovav bederech libo, derachav ra'iti ve'er pa'ehu, va'anchehu, va'ashalem nechumim, lo ve'la'av ve'lav, borei niv sifatayim, shalom shalom, larachog ve'lakarov, amar Adonai urfativ, v'harshaim kayam nigras, ki hasket lo yuchal, v'yigreshu meimav refesh vatid, ein shalom amar Elohai lar shaim, kira v'garon al tachsoch, kashofer harem kolech kolecha, v'hagei le'amo pisham, ulevet Yaakov chatotam, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam,
576.
Tzur kol ha'olamim, Tzadik b'chol dorod, ha'el ha'neman ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'madaber u'mekayim, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu, v'ne'amanim devarecha v'devarecha midvarecha, achor lo yashuv rekam, ki hamelech ne'eman v'rachaman, ata baruch ata Adonai, ha'el ne'eman b'chol devarav.
Amen.
Rachem al Tzion, ki hi beit chayenu, ulamcha Yisrael toshia b'mheira v'yameinu, Baruch atah Adonai, misamei Tzion b'vaneha.
Amen.
Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu b'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha b'mheira yavo v'yagel liveinu v'heshiv lev avot al banim v'lev banim al avotam uveitcha beit tefillah yikarei lecho ha'amim Baruch atah Adonai mevi shalom le'ad.
Amen.
Al haTorah v'avodah v'hanvim v'ayom hag haKippurim hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu limchila v'lislicha u'lechapara v'limcha bo et kol avonotenu lechavod u'tifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevarchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'fi kolcha tamid le'olam va'ed Udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad, Baruch atah Adonai, melech mochel v'soleach la'avonotenu la'avonot, amo beit Yisrael, u'mavir ashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana, melech ha'kol ha'aretz, mekadesh Yisrael, melech ha'kol ha'aretz, mekadesh Yisrael, melech ha'kol ha'aretz, mekadesh Yisrael, melech yom ha'kippurim. Thank you.
Cry relentlessly from the throat like a shofar. Cry for peace near and far. Cry and tell the people of our misdeeds, our misdoings, and give them a path to right them. Let's offer a prayer on behalf of the state of Israel, and then we'll do a unique ritual on behalf of this country. Page 583. We pray for Israel, both the mystic ideal of our ancestors' dream and the living miracle here and now, built of heart, muscle, and steel. Together, may she endure and guard her soul, surviving the relentless age-old hatreds, the cynical concealment of diplomatic deceit, and the rumblings that warn of war. May Israel continue to be a temple that magnetizes the loving eyes of Jews in all corners together, Jews in lands of affluence and relative peace, who forget the glory and pain of their being and Jews in lands of oppression, whose bloodied fists beat in anguish and pride against the cage of their imprisonment. May Israel yet embrace her homeless, her own, and bind the ingathered into one people. Together, may those who yearn for a society built on human concern find the vision of the prophets realized in her. May her readiness to defend never diminish her search for peace. May we always dare to hope that in our day the antagonism will end, that all the displaced Arab and Jew will be rooted again, and that within Israel and across her borders, together, all God's children will touch hands in peace. So I try to get to at least one Red Rocks concert every summer. This past summer, I went and heard the Avett Brothers. As I'm standing in that concert, one of the songs that they played, I felt like I was in a congregation doing a communal confessional on Yom Kippur. And I'm wondering if that will work for us here. So we traditionally offer a prayer for America, for the United States of America, and I'm offering this song as a prayer for us, seeking forgiveness for the complicated history as we as Americans reckon with especially the legacy of racism. And Elizabeth, I think you have the words, so you can put them up. I grew up with reverence for the red, white, and blue, spoke of God and liberty, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I learned love of country from my own family. Some shivered and prayed, approaching the beaches of Normandy. And the flag waves high, and that's how it should be. So many lives given and taken in the name of freedom. But the story's complicated and hard to read, and pages of the book are obscured or torn out completely. I am a son of Uncle Sam, and I struggle to understand the good and evil. But I'm doing the best I can in a place built on stolen land by stolen people.
I misnamed people in a kidnapped race. Laws may change, but we can't erase the scars of a nation. Of children devalued and disavowed, displaced by greed and the arrogance of manifest destiny. Short-sighted to say it was a long time ago. Not even 2 lifetimes have passed since the days of Lincoln. The sins of Andrew Jackson, the shame of Jim Crow. The time moves slow and the tragedies are beyond description.
I am a son of Uncle Sam, and I struggle to understand the good and evil. But I'm doing the best I can in a place built on stolen land with stolen people. We are more than the sum of our parts. All these broken homes and broken hearts. God, will you keep us wherever we go? Will you forgive us where we've been? We'll
seen shore to shore in the still open wounds of the Civil War. Watch blind hatred bounce back and forth, seen vile prejudice both in the South and the North. And accountability is hard to impose on ghosts of ancestors haunting the halls of our conscience.
But the path of grace and goodwill is still here for those of us who may be considered among the living. We are the children of God and man, and I may never understand the good and evil, but I dearly love this land because of and in spite of we the people. We are more than the sum of our parts. Oh, the broken bones and broken hearts. God, will you keep us wherever we go? Can you forgive us where we've been? We Americans, we Americans, love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love, 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 love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love, 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 love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love in our hearts with the pain and the memory, love in our hearts with the pain and the memory. Those who sow with tears will reap in joy. Those who sow with tears will reap in joy. Hazorim bedima berina yitzonu. Those who sow with tears will reap in joy.
Another volunteer to open the ark as we return the Torah. How about anyone between the age of 12 and 18? Please rise. Page 606.
It's
can still say good morning. Good morning, friends, and good yontif. So last night I spoke about why we engage in community, and that part of what draws me into community is the conversation to help discern how we invest our energy and how we choose what are the causes that we should join together in engaging. When we have energy, when we have passion, how should we employ it? So one of, obviously, the engagement in the pervasive prejudice of racism, especially in this country, has been a predominant, has come front and center since the death, the murder of George Floyd. And we haven't had a chance to talk about it as a community, in part because of COVID and other ways, and how we would go about, as a community, addressing this piece of our past. And our collective past, right? Whether one of the insights, I think, of Jewish community is that responsibility is a collective thing. I think it's Abraham Joshua Heschel who said, we are not all liable, but we are all responsible, right? We may not have personally been guilty of the crimes of slavery, of what happened, and the genocide of the indigenous people in this country. But we all have a responsibility for it. I'm curious, it's hard to read your faces behind masks, how you felt about that song, the We Americans song and prayer, and whether it also felt to you like a kind of a shamnu. And one, so what I witness in American culture over the last few years, it gets, it sort of emerges in debates on things like critical race theory and others, is that there's either we're all, we don't want to touch that past. Let's leave it aside because it's going to diminish our pride in America as Americans, or our children's sense of pride, if we open that door to the crimes of American history. And others who say, America is just the worst, right? We're just criminals. And you see that polarization and those sides not being able to talk to each other and then rejecting the other side because of the extreme views. So I'm interested, as I talked about last night, in trying to create a space where we as Jews and Jewish Americans can talk about this history. And my experience with this Facebook group I described, that was where it came up about the conflict in Israel, that the inability to have civil discourse, was that I don't know if we can really, as American Jews, begin to talk about Israel until we address our American history. I may be wrong about that. Maybe we can do them concurrently. But this year I'm inclined to take one at a time. So I had this idea I wanted to run by you. So Mordecai Kaplan, the founder of the Reconstructionist movement, was a big proponent of civil religion. He pointed to Thanksgiving as an example of how America can adopt and narrate a mythology that unites Americans, and that has rituals, right? The turkey and the meal, and it looks a lot like a Passover Seder, right? And it works, and it's the holiday that most Americans celebrate as parts of family and bringing community together. And of course, then we have to wrestle with the history of the indigenous community and how that affects right now. So we're replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. But somehow there's a missing piece for me. The piece of atonement, of actually wrestling with what was that past. And how do we integrate the two? How do we hold both the courage of pilgrims and Columbus, who came here and in search of something, a better life, right? During a time of this expulsion of Jews from Spain. And the value of the indigenous cultures that were here that are near extinct because of the imperialist violence of our European ancestors. So there's something missing. So I had this idea that I thought I'd run by you, and it's an extension of an invitation for us collectively as a congregation to think how we can encourage civic religion to help do this. If we've had success as a Jewish community in acknowledging our transgressions in the past and figuring out a way to move through them without denying them, to really do this tikkun olam, without having to start completely over, as Joanne said. So I want to propose a new holiday. On January 10th, 10 days after the secular New Year, that we have a day of American atonement. A few days before Martin Luther King Day, in which we own and talk about and the history of racism and why racism persists in our country, why, despite our best efforts to sort of acknowledge inherited and unconditional bias, that it's still a part of us, right? And I was at a talk from, who's the conservative Jewish commentator who's out in LA. He wrote a book on happiness. I'll think of it by the end. So he said, when I'm in a dark alley, I feel differently when I see a group of young guys with kippot than I do when I see a group of blacks, young blacks. And I said, you know, you're probably right, I would too. And I don't want to feel that way. So how do we get from there to where we want to be? Dennis Prager, thank you. I love chat. And who is that? Oh, it's going away. Well, thank you on chat, on Zoom. Yeah, so what do you think? The broader question is, what can we, like, Jewish history has evolved in terms of how we do atonement, right? We read in the Torah about the special clothes that the high priest wears, and the ritual of the two goats, and the lottery, which one gets sacrificed and which one gets sent in the wilderness, and somehow reminding us symbolically of kind of randomness, this life, you know, that I was born with white skin, right? And that, you know, who lives and who dies, right? Who gets COVID and who doesn't get COVID. It's like, that's the Purim of Yom Kippurim. That's the lottery, right? That's real. And so something about that, the sages, the rabbis, when the temple was destroyed, tried to preserve. So they created this liturgy of, you know, on Yom Kippur it is written, or Rosh Hashanah is written, Yom Kippur it's sealed, and Unatana Tokef, and on this day somehow, and there's some random piece about it. And they created this collective ritual, right? Instead of all of us going on the goat and putting our hands on the goat, so we all stand up together and chant with Joanne this beautiful melody for our alphabet soup of sins. And I haven't found a better way. But if we do, I'd imagine we would incorporate it into Jewish ritual. But we'd be selfish not to offer this ritual to our non-Jewish neighbors and ourselves as Jewish Americans. So let me just see by nods. Do you agree that finding a way to atone for this history in American culture is worth doing and maybe even necessary? Do you also find something valuable about the way we Jews try to do that could be applied? And, you know, these Avid brothers from Georgia or wherever who, you know, stumble on ways of maybe finding songs that can bring people together in Red Rocks and feel the sense of collective pain around that history that we live. We've built a home on stolen land, built by stolen people, right? And if we don't address this, I think the repercussions are numerous in terms of the future of Zionism as well. Because the statistics about young people in America and their commitment to Israel are alarming. And what I saw on that Facebook group in terms of the posts is a simple application of American history and imperialism in America to what happened in Israel and how Israel got created. And that's just not true. That there are some parallels. And so the tendency to do that is natural. But if we don't ourselves learn and teach our children the difference between those histories, then there won't be enough politicians in D.C. to continue to support the American support for Israel. And then Israel's existential threat, which already exists, becomes quite daunting. Does that connection ring true as well? So they're connected. Just like our individual transgressions are connected to our collective transgressions as a community. And as you can tell, this sermon is completely unscripted. Every year on Yom Kippur, I invite us to do this kind of collective conversation. So I welcome your responses. And I don't even know what question to ask. Hollis.
A really important part of the Jewish atonement tradition is going to those you have hurt and not going to the synagogue and thinking we will be exonerated from our sins. So I wonder how that would fit into it.
Thank you. Right? Yom Kippur, it is said, atones for transgressions between us and Hamakom, the source of life, us and God. But it doesn't atone for transgressions we've committed against one another. We're supposed to try to do that directly with one another. Thank you. Eric.
The difference is whether or not you're entitled to forgiveness or whether you have need to earn it.
Ooh.
And that's, to me, is the difference. And you earn forgiveness by recognizing what you did and then trying to do better.
So is forgiveness earned or an entitlement? And what is required if it's earned? And I would add to that, because in Jewish tradition, not everybody has the right to offer forgiveness, not just receive it. We're only supposed to offer forgiveness, have the right to offer forgiveness, if we ourselves have been wronged. I don't get to forgive, those who killed George Floyd, because George Floyd wasn't my community family member. That's for them to do. I don't have the right to do that. So entitlement or earn, and how do you earn that? Yeah, other comments?
One of the interesting things to me is,
Mr. Drama, could you speak up?
I could, if I had, no. I was just thinking that one of the major issues today in going around is the notion of reparations, but that doesn't connect to the traditions around Yom Kippur. So I would love a rabbinic tie for that to see if we can make sense out of what that notion really means in light of Jewish tradition.
Thank you. For those on Zoom who might not have been able to hear, so the question of reparations and the controversy around that, and reparations is not typically part of the Yom Kippur ritual. So, what is the Reuben rabbinic take on that? Brian, did you want to?
I like the idea of a country day of atonement and how it ties in with Yom Kippur. You started off talking about the chasm between those who don't feel we should even be talking about atonement, unpatriotic versus those who do. And it seems like that would just make that chasm wider, because half the country would be criticizing, why would we need to do this?
So Brian's comment was, if we do like a January 10th American Day of Atonement, wouldn't that risk exacerbating the polarization and the rejection of those who are already want to sidestep or not engage the shadow of our history? Yeah, thank you. That's important. Jonathan.
I find it to be a relatively large burden to have to sort of carry around the sins of those who came before us, that have committed these problems and have committed these sins, and then, like, those of us who are kind of on the periphery kind of feel that we have to basically atone for those people's digressions. And you sort of touched on it before, but it seems like until those whose sins that are being committed, and those who commit those sins, actually atone for themselves, it makes the burden on everyone else to be pretty great. So it's a little confusing.
Yeah, so we as witnesses to the crimes of the past and the crimes of racism that continue are carrying quite a bit of burden, and it's hard to carry that burden when the people who committed those crimes in the first place or who are committing them now aren't necessarily committing to do tshuva, to right those wrongs, which brings to Eric's piece. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think there may be something of how do we hold that sense of responsibility without it being too much of a weight for us, right? Or without it being too much of a burden, without it, like if it can inspire our engagement in the world and in these, confronting pervasive prejudice, then I think it is functioning well as a sense of responsibility. Once it makes us indifferent or so weighted that we cannot be mobilized, then it's problematic. Luke?
Yeah, I like the idea of civic religion. And the connection that I see in Judaism, the thing that I love about Judaism is that from a young age, we teach children through our practices, our values, through our holidays. And so I think if we can instill that at a younger age, so maybe not one day that pillarizes all the atonement into one day, which I guess is what Yom Kippur is doing, a January 10th day for America, I don't know if that would work, but rather disperse those atonements and make learning happen a lot more frequent, in that sense. And allow for people to process the many dimensions of what it means to be here and now and hold the truths of the past.
A little action that we can do, there are many people running for school board in Jethro and Littleton on the platform of anti-critical race theory. So we need to be involved in local politics, and it makes a huge difference of what we can do as educators.
Thank you. So just an invitation for those on Zoom who couldn't hear to be engaged in your local school boards and the politics around the educational policy, so we can make a difference in that. There's active, well-mobilized resistance to unconditional bias and critical race theory education that incorporates those things. Yeah, Allison.
I think it would be very valuable to widen the lens a little bit for the rest of the world to see us, at least in a more coherent way, try to reckon with the complexities. Because I think for being such a lot of people all over the world, I think as many problems as America has is as much beauty as we can also stand for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like neither of our institutions. So I think there's a lot of value in showing the world that we are willing to confront these complexities in a way that doesn't mean that we're just going to shift it from one way to the other, but really
Thank you.
demonstrate the value of that.
Thank you. A lot of the fear around addressing this history has to do with, well, what will it look like to other nations of the world or to our children? And like Allison, I think that if we can show, right, if we can show as Jews that we're willing to wrestle with the worst of our past, of Jewish history, if we can do that as Americans, that can be something we can celebrate and a sign of strength and pride. right? That the rabbis say that one who does tshuva, one who transgresses and then redresses that transgression, right, through the 4 stages of teshuvah, right, recognizing the wrongdoing, feeling and owning the regret, the emotional pain of having done wrong, of making a resolution to do differently, and the 4th, making restitution or making it right, repairing the wrong. Those 4 stages, when we do that, when someone does that, they are holier than one who had never transgressed. An America that can acknowledge its transgressions, feel the regret, and redress it can be regarded in higher esteem than it is already. And so too we as Jews, as a higher form of righteousness. Yeah.
So I'm going to slightly different take on this. Kind of makes me think also a little bit of what happens in Japan, where parents run up tremendous debts and then pass them along to their children, and their children are required by law basically to take on those debts, even though it's not their debts, and they work their whole life and never get anywhere because of their parents. My problem with part of my problem with this concept is that at what point do we say we didn't do this, we are living a righteous life, we are acting the way we should towards the people who were transgressed upon? At what point are we no longer responsible for what our ancestors did for the sins of the fathers?
At one point, are we no longer responsible for the sins of our ancestors, right? I can see lots of comments, but I do have to wrap up just in terms of the time of the service. Good, because I want this to be an ongoing conversation. That's the point. Thank you for sharing that. At what point is it, those are the sins of the past? Yeah, I want to hold out that sense of that. I think the weight of that inherited debt of systemic racism, of climate change, right, of other debts of domestic violence that we pass on from generation to generation, that the Torah talks about as sins of the ancestors, of the fathers being passed on to the 3rd and 4th generation. It's in the 10 Commandments. That's part of the legacy, which for me as a parent and a grandparent of puppies, wants to get that right so that so I'm leaving less of a debt to my kids and grandkids. And I don't think I can do that until I confront the debt that I inherited. It's not mine, I'm not liable. I think that's the piece of Heschel, I'm not liable for that. And that gets to the restitution piece, if we're not liable. But the transgression continues, unconsciously often, but not always. This is a rewriting of what courage is, what it means to be a soldier, what it means to have pride in who we are, individually and collectively, as Jews, as Americans. And that, I think, is a worthy conversation. And I'll close with just inviting us to take pride in our courage to address the shadows of our past. Not our past, but even generations prior, that we're still living with. And to seek to right those wrongs. And today, I think we fast to access so that our body reminds us that those memories and those biases are cellular, they're physical, and it will require a collective healing and a collective sense of atonement. So we've got some hours left. Maybe we can do it in what we've got left. Laura.
ask Rabbi Jamie if I could share this new song I've been working on for some time as an offering for all of us individually as we take our own steps in our own life, and greater steps in community, facilitating change. The idea of it being, we're warriors. I know that might be a word that might trigger, even if I say that out loud, but it's imagery, taking one step at a time in that courageous space. Not always knowing the outcome. If I let go, will it fall apart? Well, there's a push on this tender heart. I'm grasping for a ledge or a solid handle, steady and sure, staying ahead of what came before. 1, 2, 3, 4, carry me forward. Traveling like a mighty soldier. 4, 3, 2, 1. When this day is done, I have been made bolder like a mighty soldier. Trusting in these strange places. Funny that the darkness helps light the way. Thinking about eternity, learning to live more gently but strong, strong, strong where I need to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, carry me forward. Traveling like a mighty, mighty soldier. 4, 3, 2, 1. When the day is done, I have been made bolder. I am bolder like a mighty soldier. Turn, turn, take an about face and dance, dance in the inside space. Oh, step by step, step by step. 1 step, 2 step, step by step. Ooh. 1, 2, 3, 4, carry me forward. Traveling like a mighty, mighty soldier. 4, 3, 2, 1. When this day is done, we are bolder. We are bolder like mighty soldier. Step by step, step by step.
I want to thank Laura. I think we all could thank Laura. How many new pieces of music did you learn for this services?
A whole bunch.
Dozens of pieces of music, and moving out here to join our community, and it's just such a gift. Thank you. And we're better than Boulder. We're evergreen. So I think Allison is going to speak to us on behalf of the board. Allison Gustafson.
I recommend you all come up here and speak because it's a good excuse for a mask break. So there's that. Now, I just wanted to welcome all of you again to CBE on behalf of the board and myself to today and to this gorgeous service. Thank you all so much to everybody who participated in the band. Just beautiful and really moving. I just briefly wanted to introduce myself. My name is Allison Gustafson. I moved here just over 2 years ago from the North Shore of Massachusetts with my husband, Mark, and our two children, Sonia, who's 15, and Matthew, who's 12. And speaking of 15, that incredible Torah portion that you delivered, that was really spectacular. My daughter, Sonia, had her bat mitzvah just a few weeks before we moved. So the occasion turned into a bittersweet celebration of family, friendship, and 15 years of deep community involvement, very deep. It was really a heck of a party. We moved here for my husband to take on the role as a new head of Montessori school here in Evergreen, which was a bit of a leap into the unknown, but has proven to be everything we had hoped for and really more for Mark, for our kids, and for me. So as they were finalizing the hiring process, I accompanied Mark on a trip here for a 2-day interview. The school was wise to understand that we needed to make a really informed decision as a family about whether to make this big move. And as the women from the community, from the school community, took turns shuttling me around from hikes and lunches, I met people that day who were very quickly to become very dear friends. Like literally that day, I had a new best friend by the end of the day. That one in particular was taking me on a driving tour of Evergreen, and knowing that my family was Jewish, asked if I wanted to check out the Evergreen Temple. And I was like, what, a temple in Evergreen? Honestly, it had not even occurred to me that that would be possible. But as we drove up the driveway and peeked in, I remember so vividly saying to myself, this place, I remember standing in that lobby, there was nobody here, there was like one person here, but this place, as beautiful and unfamiliar as this whole mountain town, might someday become very personal to me. And so it has. I remember like it was yesterday then, sitting that fall in our first CBE service, it was Rosh Hashanah, with my family, listening to Lilia Gerberg. I told Lily I was going to mention her in this service. I know she was like, what could you possibly say about me? But Lilia was speaking here about her CBE experience, bubbling over with enthusiasm for a place that had so quickly become her home. And I remember thinking to myself, I was sitting over there, how amazing and inspiring that was, and I was wondering, will I ever feel that way about this place too? And so here I am, standing where Lilia stood, whispering to that past version of myself, why, yes, you will. I will, and I do. Ugh, so dry. CBE is a jewel. It is both spirited and spiritual, a place where you can have a profound insight and a transcendent musical experience, all within the span of a minute. It is a living community, by which I mean that in every encounter, you feel and discover things you weren't expecting, things that are born of the meeting of minds and hearts in a place of deep tolerance, openness, curiosity, and generosity. That sounds abstract, but it is in fact a very real phenomenon that happens when a space is so consciously created. So as a member of the board, the Tikkun Olam Committee that Joanne spoke about so brilliantly, and now the executive committee, and with my son in the religious school preparing for his own bar mitzvah, I have one down and one to go, I feel like I know a lot about what goes on here. But every week and at every meeting, I realize how much more happens that I had no idea about. And like knitting, I didn't even realize there was knitting. You know, all those informal committees that you mentioned, there's just so much that I feel like I'm informed, but there's just always more. We are living through a challenging time that has been, for many, a deeply isolating one. It's a time that asks, I think as we've covered today, very big things of us. To examine who we are, what we want, what we need, and what we might do to bring flourishing to our own life and to the lives of others. I contend that however you might personally approach those big questions, you'll find someone else in this community, an individual, a group, or an informal band of hikers, looking to share that journey of exploration. I know it can be awkward reaching out and joining in when you're not exactly sure what's going on, who's who, what's what, and where you're supposed to go. It's a vulnerable thing to do. But I want you to know that as a member of this wonderful, passionate, and inspiring board and community, I want to wish you not only a Shana Tova, which I think is correct still. I was trying to double check on that. But also to let you know that we are here as individuals and as a group to make sure that even the quietest little nudge you might feel to try something new, to open up to new experiences, people, and possibilities is greeted with a warm and reassuring guiding hand. And if we don't know the answer, we will admit it and find someone who does, which I think is something we all need to do a little bit more of, admit when we don't know and, explore. Of all years, this is the year for all of us to show up in whatever way we can, to whatever degree we are able, on Zoom or in person, for the things that are calling to us. This is the year to acknowledge nervousness or reluctance and to say, nah, I'm gonna try it anyway, because a community only flourishes when we all bring our full selves to it. So I am here to test, sorry, I rewrote the ending like a few minutes ago. So here's my new and improved ending from what I had before. All of that, let's see, what is it actually? All right, here it is. Ready? After all that wondering when we first arrived, when I first heard Lilia speak, I'm here to testify that showing up truly is its own reward. So, Shana Tova, and thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm just checking the time because I had another, filler of breakout groups, which I thought would be fun to do for, especially on Zoom, to get you guys connected. And you can still do that, but I think we'll bring close to the service because the hike starts in 5 minutes or 7 minutes. Let's turn to page 1202, and we'll rise, and as we do the melody, right, do this now very familiar song and recite the phrase, Ein Od, there is no other. We try to internalize what we've been doing, saying, and feeling this morning, just in the course of, or since last night at sundown, and where it means we're headed. be seated. So we will have a Yizkor service later this afternoon, but we do want to name and mourn with the families of Doreen Heimbach, a founding member of CBE, and Samuel Yusum, David's brother, Desmond Cartwright, Steve Picar's stepfather, Conrad Weinacht, David's father, Ed Tobin, Reese's father, Marilyn Leader, Beth Perlman's mother, Barb Lippman, a beloved member, pioneering member of CBE, Paul Greenbaum, Guy's father, Sharon Fitzpatrick, Anshul's mother, Bob Freed, Neshama's father, Kate Olson, Charlie's wife, Bruce Olin Chalker, Charlie's father, Marilyn Brown, Bruce's mother, and Stuart Fox, Susan's brother. Other names that want to be added to Kaddish, actually I have yard sites here too. We have Lucy Ginley, Aladar Revez, Bob Waller, Peggy Winkler, Sarah Rohr, Arnold Picard, Lee Sobelman, Jonathan Friedman, Martin Berman, Marty Orens, Simon Friedman, Herbert Schneider, Harvey Schneider, Al Spiegelman, Irma Smith, Kalman Judah Bukatman, Barbara Lockwood, Herman Levine, and Shirley Katz. If there's other names in your relation to them you'd like to say, go ahead and stand. And if you're connected to one of the names I mentioned, please rise. Other names: Robert Peck, David Zussman, Jeff Glantz, Judy Goldberg, Mosde Ranma. Zichronam Livracham. May their memories be for a blessing. 12:16 is Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah B'yoma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dicho Beit Yisrael B'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Leolam Ulome Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shemei Dekudsha B'richu. Le'ela le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu Israel V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. May those in mourning find comfort, and may all of us be granted the experience of peace, a greater peace than we've known before in the coming year for us, for Israel, and all who dwell on earth. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated, and Luke will come on up and share with us reminders of what else is happening this afternoon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to start with some thank yous. I want to thank our band who have been playing with us this morning, last night, and so specifically have our singers, Francesca Rubin and Laura Berman. Thank you so much. Brian Adenhoff and Alan Adenhoff, as well as Sherry Rubin, who has been our musical director and coordinating all the musicians and putting this group together. So thank you all for bringing to life these words. Our tech crew, a big shout out to Alan Rubin for coordinating our tech, and James Ketchum, who's been working with us for all of our high holiday services and has been amazing in getting the sound quality and working with our musicians. A big shout out to Elizabeth, as usual. She's been working our Zoom and as well as the many other things that she does. So if you get to see her, please thank her as well. I want to thank Evergreen Security, who have been on site with us for all of our high holiday services. So that's Gary, Mike, and Rob. Gary's out front right now, so if you see him, also give him a thank you. Thank you to our board members who are here today. Always wonderful to see you. Thank you, Allison, for sharing your story with us. That was wonderful. And just thank you again for this community, for being here. Right now, in 1 minute or so, we are starting our hike. We'll hold off a little bit for people, but if you want to join the hike, you can meet Ben and Helen out front. I think Helen's already out there and Ben is sitting in here, so when he leaves, you can follow him. And then at 3, we'll have 2 options for people to join. Here in the temple, we'll have gentle yoga happening in the social hall, as well as Torah study, the book of Jonah, here in the sanctuary. And then at 4 p.m., we have our family service, which is in person as well as on Zoom. So for people on Zoom, if you want to join us again for that, we would love to have you. And then at 5, we'll have a healing service outdoors, a very lovely opportunity to reflect on everything that we've been digesting this morning. Well, metaphysically digesting, since we're not digesting anything else. And then at 5:45, we'll start our Yiskor and Ne'ilah service. So if you're around for that, please join us. And then we have a few other things coming in the following week. So we have a groundbreaking ceremony for our new amphitheater, which is going to be happening on Sunday at 2:30 this Sunday, followed by building of the Sukkot. So we'll be breaking ground and building a sukkah. And then all next week we have lovely opportunities for us to commune in the sukkah. And I don't know if I want to mention food right now, but we'll have lots of opportunities to eat bagels and pizza. Please, Pizza in the Hut is on Wednesday, Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. So you can find those all on our website, as well as flyers are in the foyer. Then we have Simchat Torah in 2 weeks on Wednesday, September 29th. So come revel in re-scroll or unscrolling the Torah with us. And then I would like to remind you that we are collecting donations from the Jewish Family Services that you might have seen in the foyer. We have a lot of food. Thank you to everyone who's already brought food. We'll be collecting food until September 23rd. So if you have an opportunity to drop off some food that will go to Denver families in need, that would be wonderful. And then we have a few programs in October that I would just like to quickly highlight. So through the CBE Adult Education, we'll have a viewing happening on October 3rd about crypto Jews or Jewish people in New Mexico who discovered their Jewish heritage coming from Spain. And that's a viewing that will be happening online, and that's in connection with the book club. And then we have a 4-class series happening on Israel. It's called Israel, A Deeper Look with Itai Davinsky. And that is starting in October as well, and deepening our knowledge about Israel. And then on October 10th, I'll be leading a Safe Zone training, which is an LGBTQ plus allyship training here at the temple as well. And last but not least, if you have some transgressions that you would like to write down and put in our al-Chet box in the back corner, please do that. We are going to be burning those and releasing those from ourselves later today. And if you have high holiday appeal cards on your chairs, if you want to make a donation to the high holiday appeal, you can go ahead and put it in the tzedakah box, which is in the lobby, or at a later time you can donate online. So thank you all, and have an easy fast for the rest of the day.
Thank you. I just want to add, again, thank yous to Francesca and the Adonaf Band personally, and also to the Torah readers. And Leah did a beautiful job first time reading, and everyone, Tara, thank you for filling in for Maureen, and Joanne, as always. And of course, our hope is to, at some point, resurrect the CBE singers, the choir. But given that we wanted fewer people up here without masks, that was the reason we didn't do it this year. So keep an eye out and ear out. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again soon. We'll close with Oseh Shalom. And let's do that. Okay? And of course, the building will be open. Feel free, even if you're not here for a special program, just to hang out and use the space and use the prayer book, and make the day be easier to fast if you're not, distracted by your refrigerator or the restaurant that you're flying by that you've been really wanting to try.
Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'alko Yisrael, ve'alko yoshvei tevel, ve'imru.
גמר חתימה טובה לשנה טובה.